You guys wanted to hear more audio from my custody trial when I lost full custody of my daughter. You've got to hear this.
I would like to give it as a testimony presentation. So Ashlyn is my fifth child, so just to tell you a little bit about me and her. She has four adults or older siblings that, at one point during her childhood have resided with me: a 23-year-old sister, a 22-year-old brother, an 18-year-old brother, and a 12-year-old brother who... Dante, yep. That's the one that lives with me in the camping trailer with Ashlyn. For the past 6 years, I've been the one managing all of Ashlyn's care, therapy appointments, school, and daily needs. Mr. Crozier has primarily been doing weekend visits with Ashlyn every weekend except for the second weekend of the month. I did create the proposed parenting plan because if you do come to a situation where you do believe parenting time should be changed, I definitely don't think Mr. Crozier's parenting plan suggestion is going to work for Ashlyn's needs. So I created one for you to take a look at as Exhibit A. Then some details about Ashlyn and our recent hardship. Some of the evidence was difficult to obtain, so that's why I'm testifying based on my direct evidence caring for Ashlyn if I don't have the evidence available. Ashlyn is a 6-year-old girl. She was diagnosed with global developmental delay and ADHD at 4 years old. She experiences delays across multiple domains, including adaptive, speech, gross motor, cognitive, and her social emotional growth. I had her assessed after our initial divorce.
Do you have any documents to support those diagnoses?
Well, that was the part that I wasn't able to come up with in 2 weeks' time.
So the 2 weeks thing is because we had our early resolution conference just 2 weeks prior to this trial date. And that was because at the early resolution conference, I had asked the judge to approve a temporary parenting plan that we could follow in the meantime while we waited for mediation, because I had already moved over 150 miles away. The judge decided to waive mediation and schedule an hour-and-a-half trial in 2 weeks. So I didn't really have the ability or the resources to print triple copies of every single piece of evidence. It would have been a giant stack to have proved everything that I said. So in the beginning, I was explaining to the judge, nervously, I'm nervous at this time, so I'm not saying things perfectly, but I think I'm getting my message across that my testimony is the evidence and that I'm not trying to prove that I'm right. I'm trying to give him an example of what our life has been. I said, this is some information about my daughter and I. This is a little bit about our life and what we've been doing the last few years. So hope that makes the rest of this make more sense.
Was it from a medical doctor or from a school?
Yes, she was diagnosed through OHSU out of Eugene. They have a child diagnosis center down there. She was also assessed through early intervention in Albany. She's been assessed through her pediatrician, Dr. Horsley here in Albany. And she also
that early intervention, they have a list of things that they encourage someone, that's the whole point of the early intervention, to intervene. What were those recommendations?
Well, the recommendations were what I actually went forward with the following 3 years, which were occupational therapy, speech therapy, and then eventually by age 6 she also needed some physical therapy. Over the last 3 years, I've participated and facilitated an average of 77 appointments for her per year. That includes all of her IEP meetings, all of her disability meetings, her surgeries, and
surgeries. What surgeries did she have?
She had to have her tubes put in her ears and her adenoids removed. She also had to have full caps put on all of her teeth at 3 years old because she, with her adaptive delays, was not allowing us to brush her teeth. And she does need another surgery to have her tonsils removed at some point within the next couple of years. Mr. Crozier has covered about 3 appointments per year. So with the appointments that she's been having with my facilitation, she's actually currently caught up to age development at 6 years old, even though she does experience some challenges still. But this was a good opportunity for me to switch services because the gap in service being temporary wasn't going to cause too much of a regression in her progress.
Who's her pediatrician now?
She does not have one yet established in Grants Pass. We just got the insurance transferred over last week, waiting on the process for that to go through. Also, I've been very busy with this case.
Yeah, understood. Where is she going to school?
She goes to Lighthouse Academy, which is a private school in Grants Pass, Oregon, and she is also homeschooled as supplement to her curriculum at the private school because of her delays. She does need extra support through learning.
did she start going to Lighthouse Academy?
Well, she started going there about a week after we moved there, which was end of August, but they began their school year the first week of September.
Okay. So she started going there in August or in September?
Both. They offer a childcare program, so she was enrolled in the childcare part, and then once they began their school curriculum, she went to a classroom where she goes to learn her academics.
So is that an elementary school or is that a preschool?
It's both. They do actually preschool through third grade at that location. There's quite a few options in Southern Oregon for these types of schooling, alternative school for families.
How much does that cost a month?
It costs approximately $1,100, which covers all of the childcare and education.
I was never told any of this information then. No.
Please continue, Ms. Crozier.
Thank you. Previously, when I lived in Albany, I was operating a daycare out of my home, which allowed me to meet Ashlyn's need while maintaining steady income and flexibility.
Where was that and when was that?
The childcare, I began doing it in 2016. I had taken some breaks to go back to work.
Any information that has any relevance is going to be from when the dissolution was signed back in fall of 2022 to now. So
The whole time I was talking and he was asking me questions, I was worried about running out of time and not being able to say everything I wanted to say. But my 15 years of childcare experience and the fact that I work from home with my children, the fact that while we were at trial, I was currently working at the school and daycare that she attended, that really does actually play a lot of weight in the custody decision. I am not only her primary parent as far as after school hours and on the weekends, but I have been her parent during the day as well. I operated a child care so I could meet her needs, so we could be financially stable. And at the end of this, you'll hear his ruling completely dismiss the fact that none of this was really my choice. My circumstances made it to where we had to move and I had to uproot my family. And I was doing that in the most gentle and thoughtful and educated way that I possibly could have.
Since fall of 2022, I closed the daycare for 1 year to establish services for Ashlyn. During that time, I did odd jobs and had a very difficult time making ends meet. But since I was able to establish DSP services and her occupational therapy, also a positive behavioral support plan, I was able to reopen my daycare in September of 2023, which I operated up until February of 2025. In January of 2025, my 18-year-old son, Ashlyn's brother Andre, experienced a medical crisis. I needed to provide full-time care for him for 2 months, which caused me to lose my daycare business and my income. When insurance denied our housing assistance, we had to move out of our rental home in May of 2025 for non-payment of rent. I then purchased a 22-foot camping trailer, and my 2 children and I began living in it full-time.
now she's concerned about the disruption to Ashlyn's life. Now she's concerned. But she moved without having a place to live, pulling her out of school, kindergarten, before the end of the school year while she didn't have an identified place to live. Stability is critical for children at that tender age of 6, especially children who have these developmental disabilities that Ms. Crozier testified to. She doesn't have a pediatrician. She isn't even going to a school. There's some conflicting testimony about whether she's going to brick and mortar school, whether she's homeschooled. She testified that she got evicted due to non-payment of rent, and again, didn't have a plan and just moved. And above all, there wasn't any testimony about, okay, we've got all this early intervention. There's no pediatrician. Who's providing that service? Who's monitoring to make sure that she's achieving or catching up to benchmarks? That I still didn't even see any documentation of. Based on mother's failure to provide a safe and stable residence for Ashlyn, not putting the child's needs first, awarding custody to Mr. Crozier,